Hey everyone, and welcome to my very much long-awaited Arrow Season 7 review. Now, everyone has been asking me throughout this entire run course of this season, why have I not been reviewing these episodes weekly? I made a point about it when I reviewed the first, I believe, 7 episodes of the season in one video, that I just didn't have the spare time on me. I couldn't do it physically because I didn't have the time. But now that Season 7 officially came to an end last week, I've had a bit of time now to think about where I stand with this season of Arrow, what I've felt about the episodes, and to obviously come here now and to record my review for it. So, let's get straight into it. So the main story of Season 7 was that it continued right after the end of Season 6, where Oliver was officially outed to the world as the Green Arrow, and he was subsequently arrested in Slabside Maximum Security Prison on a life sentence, where he is incarcerated with fellow criminals that he has put away during his times as the Green Arrow. And whilst you've got that, you've got the rest of Team Arrow, who have all subsequently retired from their superhero lives because of the anti-vigilante law that has passed since Oliver was arrested, and we basically get to see how the city has basically gone downhill since then, and then this new wave of vigilantes are starting to crop up. Now, I was really looking forward to Season 7 going into it because, of course, we had the new showrunner of Beth Schwartz. She replaced Mark Guggenheim and Wendy Miracle, who left after Season 6. Now, everybody who's watched this channel for a long time knows that I was extremely critical of Mark and Wendy's work on this show. Yes, they did good with Season 5, but literally Season 4 was dreadful, Season 6 was so inconsistent, and Season 3 was just so incredibly meh and underwhelming. So I feel like they got rid of them at the perfect opportunity, and with Beth, she kind of had the chance to bring in all these new ideas. So I really was excited for Season 7 going into it. And whilst I would say that Season 7 is definitely an improvement upon Season 6, mainly because it feels a lot fresher, there are certainly a lot of criticisms that do unfortunately resonate from the decisions that Beth has decided to make in the position of showrunner. Now, we'll start off with the positives first, and I'm going to go quickly through the episodes that I found were the strongest of this entire season. These episodes would be episodes 1 to 8, just a straight run of those first 8 episodes because I thought they were honestly all fantastic. And then we have episode 12, which was the 150th episode, episode 13, which was the episode with Stanley. We have episode 18, which was the kind of the Black Siren, Birds of Prey-esque episodes, and then episode 20, which was the episode where Roy came into the current day storyline. Those were my favourite episodes of the entire season, for me personally. I've just really enjoyed those episodes a lot, and they were the ones that really stood out to me. In terms of first positives I had with this season, I think the immediate one I have to get out of the way is the prison story arc. This was such a really cool and different kind of story that we had seen in Arrow. We really hadn't seen anything like this beforehand. And this was what I was talking about when I meant Beth bringing in some fresh ideas, because as soon as we knew that Oliver was going to end up in prison, I was really excited by this, and they did not disappoint. I loved the prison because it was just somewhere different. It opened up the world of Star City far more than we had seen previously, and it just allowed us to get a better sense of these villains that Oliver has locked away over the years, but to actually get some more development with them, especially in the case of Bronze Tiger. You really get a lot more with him. You learn a lot more about his character. And I just loved how fresh they felt, you know, discovering the different layers of Slabside, you know, the whole level system, how you've got the kind of the corrupt level 2, which Oliver ends up in. That's really cool as well. And just all the nice cool cameos and appearances you get within the prison arc, I just thought was really interesting. And these fresh ideas kind of came through as well with the ideas of having multiple villains throughout the season. Obviously, we had kind of been teased with this in Season 6, however, it didn't really come off in the grand scheme of things because Caden James was a terrible villain and Diaz was kind of cool but didn't really have a lot of development. Here we end up having 3 villains throughout this entire season. You have Diaz as the main villain during the prison story arc, then you have Dante coming into the picture, and then for the final third of the season you have Emiko effectively becoming the big bad. I think this was a really cool idea on paper. It's been done in other shows before. Most notably, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have done it in their last few seasons to really, really good effect. So I really liked them bringing this through because it just felt, again, something very different to what we'd had beforehand. And in the case of Diaz, I think it worked very well with him. I actually think the writing for Diaz this season was better than it was in Season 6, even though there were a few things that weren't explained with his character, like the super drug thing, but overall I did like it, the idea of it, and it definitely helped Diaz in making him a more threatening villain. In terms of my favourite characters this season, easily Diaz is up there. Again, I really liked what they did with him in here compared to Season 6. Bronze Tiger was fantastic as well, mainly because the prison story arc really helped to flesh him out as a character, and he didn't feel like this, one-note villain. You realise that there were different sides to him. You find out he has a son. I just loved getting to spend some time with him as a character. Michael Jai White was fantastic, not just in the action sequences, but his acting as well was brilliant throughout the entire season. I really hope we get to see at least one more appearance by him before the show ends at the end of next season, because I really loved having him back. But for me, the MVP was Black Siren. I loved her character. You all know that I really, really dig Black Siren in Season 6. She was probably my joint favourite character in that season along with Quentin, and here she's fantastic. I love the idea of her carrying on her DA work to help honour Quentin. I thought Katie Cassidy this season was fantastic. My only real thing that I wish we had with Black Siren was I wish we'd actually delved more into her backstory. She talks a lot about it this season, and we do see a few glimmers of her past on Earth too, but I do wish we'd had a little bit more. But again, I think that is more of a nitpick for me, because overall I thought Black Siren was easily the most compelling character for me in this entire season, and yeah, my favourite character overall. The action as well this season is fantastic. It felt like a huge step up from Season 6, because even though Season 6 had some good action sequences, there were quite a few episodes where I felt like it was filmed very poorly, or the lighting was too dark, or it was edited too harshly. Here it felt brilliant, especially the episodes directed by James Bamford, because they're always fantastic. But I feel like the action as a whole was really, really good. They pulled off some amazing camera work. Definitely some moments in terms of like the camera work and how it's filmed that I certainly won't forget. Absolutely brilliant stuff, and it just makes me more excited for how they're going to top this for the final season. Very exciting indeed. And then the final positive is, of course, episode 7. I had to give it its own separate one, because this is honestly one of the best episodes of Arrow ever. I mean, from an action standpoint, it's magnificent. This episode is probably about 3/4 action. It's quite insane to think about it, but it actually is. And every action sequence is so brilliant. The stunt team and the choreography is fantastic. The performances, especially Kirk Acevedo as Diaz in here, fantastic. And it was just brilliant. Everything about this episode came together so well. There was a reason there was so much hype going into this episode. You could have ended the season on this episode and I would have been so happy. Just make this episode, turn the episode into a 7-episode limited series, and then have just ended it here. It would have been perfect. And I just loved how it culminated the entire prison story arc in just this massive gush of action. And it was absolutely brilliant. Like I say, easily for me in my top 5 episodes of Arrow ever. It was that brilliant, and it was just a phenomenal way to close off a great story arc. However, sadly, that is where the positives end with this season, and we get onto the negative/nitpicks of this season. And sadly, whilst I do overall enjoy this season, there are quite a few things that did bug me about the show. Specifically after, that initial prison story arc, after episode 8, for me was when the negatives of this season really started to creep in. In terms of my least favourite episodes, they would be episode 10, which was the mid-season premiere. You had episode 14 as well, which was the episode where Task Force X were kind of there and Dante was kind of introduced. 15, which was the training day episode, which I just thought was complete and utter filler. Episode 16, which was the flash forward episode, which I really was not a big fan of, and I'll get onto that later. We have episode 21, which I mainly didn't like for the plot twist at the end, revealing that everything was a hallucination, because there are so many plot holes you can fill out with that. And then, of course, the finale, episode 22, I didn't particularly enjoy that episode either. Overall, there are a lot less episodes that I hated this season compared to season 6, but I think there's a lot more episodes that I found either meh or disappointing in contrast to last season. So let's get into some of the characters that underwhelmed me this season, and there are quite a few, so you're going to have to bear with me for this one. Dinah. Dinah, for me, is the most inconsistently written character in the history of Arrow. I really struggle to fathom why she is still here as a character. She's done almost nothing. You now have a more interesting version of her character in Black Siren. Dinah literally is just there to flip-flop on the spot in terms of her motivations from episode to episode. One episode she'll say one thing, the next episode she'll counteract herself, the next episode she'll be a hypocrite, the next episode she'll do something incredibly questionable. I just don't understand what the writers are doing with her, because there seems to be no plan with what her story is. They tried to do something with her last season with Vince, but it just didn't work out. In this season, she's kind of wanting to become the head of the police, but she's like, oh, I want to be a vigilante as well, and then she loses her canary cry. Honestly, at the moment she loses her canary cry, I was like, this character is completely useless now. So I really do not know what they're doing with Dinah. If I was the showrunner, I would just write her out the show, because for me, you've got Black Siren there. Black Siren is far more interesting than Dinah. It's a shame because Juliana Harkavy is a very good actress. She's just given nothing to do, and then when she is given something, it's completely stupid. Roy was also, for me, wasted this season, because you have Colton Haynes as a series regular, yet he didn't feel like a series regular. There was a massive stretch for, like, I think it was during the middle section of the season, where he was barely in any episodes, and I don't know if it was because Colton was doing something else, or he just wanted some time off, but he certainly did not feel like a series regular, and I think he was wasted, mainly because he spent so much time only being in the flash forwards, because he only comes into the current day storyline in the final 3 episodes, which for me was just way too late, especially since Roy, it was very much one of the big driving factors going into season 7 was we've got Roy back in a regular role, but not only did he not feel like a regular, he's kept away from the majority of the main cast for like 3/4 of the season, so I did find that very underwhelming, and it seems as if they've now written him out of the show completely in the finale, which I just overall, it just left a sour taste in my mouth, because I just wish that they had just done far more with him in the current day storyline. Renee as well, he kind of had a storyline this season where he was having this friendship with Emiko, but it completely dropped off a hill after, what was it, episode 14, when Emiko like reveals herself to be working with the Ninth Circle. That story completely goes fucking nowhere. So Renee virtually has nothing to do for the rest of the season other than his future storyline. Can we also talk about his wig as well? What is up with that wig of his in the future? It looks so terrible. You could give that wig its own show. It's that atrocious. Dante was also incredibly wasted as well. I really like the actor that they got for him, and I really liked what they were doing with him in the middle section of the season, you know, setting him up as this villain. But then as soon as they start doing things with him, he just gets killed off by Emiko, and it just feels like it was all absolutely for nothing. And again, I would have been happy if Dante was the main villain, because I found him really interesting. Now, Emiko just straight up sucked this season. I don't understand how she can go from dressing up as the Green Arrow, which already made no sense because the entire world knows that Oliver Queen is the Green Arrow, to then all of a sudden be revealing, oh, my master plan was to destroy your legacy. How could you do that dressing up as the Green Arrow when everybody knows who he is? That didn't make any sense. I would honestly not be surprised if the writers changed their minds on what they wanted to do with her halfway through the season, because the two do not add up together. How Emiko was made the big bad was just stupid, because in the comics, she is not a villain. And then when she gets her redemption arc, in the final episode, it is so short and undeserved. Like, 2 episodes beforehand, she drops an entire building on Oliver and Team Arrow. That, for me, was where her redemption ends. She could not be redeemed, and she didn't want it. And then when she does get herself redeemed, she's killed off by, like, this supposedly important member of the Ninth Circle that we have never seen before. I think she was called Beatrice on IMDb. I can't even remember. She literally shows up only to kill off Emiko. I would not be surprised if we never see that Beatrice character again. So yeah, they completely rushed the Emiko redemption arc, and overall she was just such an underwhelming character. See Shimuka, she was alright in parts, but I didn't really feel like she had the presence to be a big bad, and just having Emiko as a villain didn't make sense given that in the comics she is not a villain. So I really found that frustrating, especially as somebody who does read Green Arrow comics. That really frustrated me, and I found that completely underwhelming in regards to her character. Black Star was completely underwhelming as well. In fact, no, let's not say underwhelming. She straight up was awful. Catherine McNamara, look, I don't like to harp on actresses, but Catherine McNamara, I just do not buy her in this role. I just didn't think she was very good. And the writing for her character was equally as bad. She's constantly going against what people are saying, being ignorant, and just, I did not like her character at all. She was a poor choice for the lead of this flash forward storyline, because I just did not like her character at all. And so to have her be so focused and central to this entire flash forward storyline, it just made me hate them even more. And then in regards to that, let's jump onto the flash forwards. They sucked as well. I did not like the flash forwards this season. For me, they were interesting when it was just older William and older Roy on Lian but then the moment they start going to Star City, then they go to the Glades, then we find out that the Glades is now this mega rich place and Star City has gone to shit. And you find out, you know, what's happening to the rest of the members of Team Arrow. it just felt like it was just going too expansive, and it just became too big for its own good. And the main reason I don't like the flash forwards is mainly because, like I say, I didn't like Mia, and she ends up becoming the center character of it by the halfway point. And I also just don't like the fact that it basically takes away so much tension from the current day storyline. Because why should I now be as invested in this current day storyline when I know that in 20 years' time, this all accumulates for nothing and Star City goes to shit? It just takes away from that for me completely. If they had just kept it as older Roy and older William on Lian Yu, that would have been fine. But the moment they started bringing it back into Star City, that's when I started to question them. And by the end of the flash forwards, I just did not like them at all. I found them really stupid and completely and utterly pointless. I really hope that we don't have these in Season 8, because I want them to just purely focus on ending the show. I don't want them to have to only have half the time, because they've got to write the flash forwards as well. Just end them, just don't bring them back for Season 8. They didn't work here. I really don't want to see them again. And then for the last section of kind of characters wasted, we have the Longbow Hunters. I really did not like how they were utilized. They were hyped up in the Season 6 finale as these master assassins that even the League of Assassins are afraid of. But they were literally useless. They had no personality. The only cool one was Silencer, but that was only because of her power, not because of her specifically as a character. I just found them completely underwhelming. They bring up Kodiak for one episode in the back half of the season. But literally, other than that, they have literal no relevance to the entire story, and they were so underwhelming because in the comics, they are so fucking awesome, and in here, they are completely and utterly wasted. It was almost like Beth didn't really know what to do with them, because, Mark and Wendy were kind of in the Season 6 finale, here you go, Beth, use these, and it was almost like she just didn't know what to do with them. They just felt completely inconsequential, and you honestly could have cut them from the entire season, and it really would have changed nothing. Task Force X, aka the Suicide Squad, again, completely wasted. They hyped them up so much as this big thing, and they literally, in 3 episodes, and they really do not accumulate to anything. They go on their first mission, it's they're all compromised, we can't use it again. I don't know whether it's because of the James Gunn movie that they had to cut short on the plans, I don't know, but it just ended up being so underwhelming because you had all these cool characters such as, Joe Wilson. I really wanted to see more of him, and China White. I really wanted to see more of these characters, but it's completely dropped down the drain pipe. And it was just so underwhelming because I really liked Task Force X on this show, and I just really wanted to see more of it, especially considering how much attention and hype they were getting beforehand. And then lastly, we have the finale. It was so incredibly messy. The first 20 minutes was so rushed. Like I say earlier on, they tried to rush the Emiko redemption arc so badly, and it just feels so forced and out of nowhere. This whole, chemical weapon that she has that can melt people's faces goes nowhere. The SCPD hunting after Green Arrow and Team Arrow in general for the death of 2 cops, again, goes nowhere really. And then the last 20 minutes is just Olicity bullshit. I understand Emily Bett Rickards, she's leaving the show, you want to spend some time with her, but you could have easily trimmed down half of what was here. You could have trimmed it down to about 10 minutes and actually given some time and attention to the Ninth Circle and Emiko. But nope, we had to get all them Olicity scenes because, the fandom really wants them. I just can't understand it. It was completely and utterly pointless. And I honestly feel as if Emily Bett Rickards announcing so late on that she was leaving is what incoincidentally caused this, because it's almost like the writers had to change at the last minute and try to, write all these ending scenes for her character at the very last second. And it certainly feels like it to me. I just did not enjoy the episode as a finale. The only scenes I liked in the back half of it were the monitor scenes. Other than that, I thought the finale was incredibly underwhelming, and it was just a really sour way to end on this season. So overall for Arrow Season 7, like I say, I did mention a lot of negatives in regards to the season, but overall, I did enjoy this season somewhat. I think the best way to describe it is disappointing, because the start of it was so good, and the foundations were there for how to make this season brilliant, but they just never followed through on that. For me, after episode 7, it just slowly went off a cliff. Again, just very underwhelming and disappointing. So in regards to my final rating, I'm going to give Season 7 a 7.5 out of 10. I certainly don't think it's a bad season. It's definitely above average. It's a good season. I would just struggle, in my opinion, to call it great, simply because I feel like I said, after those initial 8 episodes, it just never recaptured that magic in the bottle. And for me, how you end a season is very, very much the deciding factor on whether your season is going to be memorable or not. All the great seasons of Arrow all have memorable endings. For me, season 7 completely lacked that, and I think had it got that landing ground, I may have bumped it up to an 8, but without that, I couldn't give it any higher than the score I've given it now. And yeah, I'm just left very underwhelmed and disappointed in regards to how this season finished off. So thank you all very much for watching my review for Arrow Season 7. Of course, let me know in the comments section down below what you thought about this season. Do you agree with me that it was a little bit underwhelming in the back half, or did you enjoy the entire season? Let me know about that down below. I want to thank you all very much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will catch you all again for the next video. Goodbye.